The clock on the platform wall didn't make the time pass. It trembled. The second seemed to be the one as each dropped into a deep pit, reverberating through the hollow concrete ribs of the subway station. I couldn't recall how I had come there. I was strolling home that Tuesday night when I suddenly find myself on a platform with an ominous odor of ozone and old pennies. I checked my watch. 3:32 a.m. An air of predatory stillness engulfed the air. There was no breeze to ruffle the wastes on the platforms, nor was there any distant sound of urban life to be heard. I reached for my cell phone to call a cab, but my screen went crazing. The signal bars disappeared and were replaced with an empty space. I lifted it to my shoulder, looking for any sign of life, but it was still a piece of dead glass and plastic in my hand. After that, it was a jolting final tick. 3:33 a.m. There was a hum in my shoes as I walked that turned into a steady thrum, shaking my teeth. Two pale, clinical lights came out of the throat of the tunnel, like the eyes of a sea-dwelling creature. The train did not make a loud noise when it stopped. It merely made a sound that was like a heavy sigh. The doors opened to reveal a sea of faces. Inside, the light was a dim, yellowish glow that cast a pall of pallor over the skin of the handful of passengers. I was uncertain. The urge to run. The attraction to stay. I stepped inside. The door slammed behind me, and the station was closed. I looked around the carriage. There were 4 other people. A woman holding a handbag to her chest, a man with a blank expression staring at the ceiling, and the elderly couple, holding hands tightly with their knuckles turning white. They didn't look at me. They did not look at anything. I approached the window in hope of spotting a familiar name. The outside darkness was broken up by glimpses of concrete walls as we sped by. Onto our first stop, we slowed. I leaned into the sign on the platform, squinting my eyes. I said aloud, "The Weeping Willow." My words were heavy on my tongue. I ruefully drew on my memory and my brain for a map of the city that had such a place. Nothing. "Oh, sorry," I said, looking at the man in the suit. I was talking to the man in the suit. "Do you know where we are? I believe that I took the wrong line." The man didn't move his head. He had a rasping voice, like sandpaper on a stone. "Here are no wrong lines." "What is it you mean by that? What is this train heading towards?" Eventually, he turned his eyes to me. The pupils were missing from his eyes, and they were milky white. He whispered, "To the place where the debt is paid." A cold needle of fear ran down my back. I stepped back, and my heart pounded like a caged bird on my ribcage. I tried again with my cell phone, hoping to find any sort of connection to the world I knew. But it was still black. The train jerked away, and I was pressing up against the split vinyl upholstery. We made another stop. This one was nothing more than a ledge of rough rock at the bottom of a hole that seemed to go on forever. The sign said, "The silence of 1,000 lies." I was suddenly struck with a sharp feeling in my chest. There was a memory that came back to me, unasked, unruly. Rain. Headlights overpowering the darkness. The sound of a metal object colliding with something soft, causing a soft thud noise. I remembered the windshield spider webbing and how I looked in the rearview mirror and saw the quietness of the shape of the road, and then the car shift into drive, and I went away to the night. I breathed in and out in a hitching rhythm, my breath gasping. The woman in the floral dress said, "You're remembering." Her eyes were now riveted on mine, and it hadn't been there before. They were wide and filled with an old, worn-down sadness. I said, "I don't know what you're talking about." It was a rain that she whispered to. The look of those asphalt roads like a black mirror, and the fact that you didn't stop. "It was a misadventure," I yelled into the empty car, the sound grating through the sterile, cold walls of the car. I panicked. It was too late before I met them. The man in the suit responded, his voice emotionless. Panic is a choice. Silence is a decision. The walk away is the loudest decision. The train's speed increased, and the sound of the train engine became a gentle, low whistle. The lights began to shake more and more, and cast long, distorted shadows that appeared to creep towards my ankles. I glanced at the passengers inside the wagon, and saw that everyone else was getting changed. Their skin was turning gray, and their shapes were becoming translucent, like the train was eating them away. "Who are you guys?" I demanded, trembling my voice. My trembling voice. The woman answered, "We are the echoes, those who waited at the stations that you passed." I fell back into the seat. That guilt that I had buried for 3 years came out and pressed me into the seat, squeezing the air out of my lungs. I could smell it now. Not ozone, but the metallic taste of blood and the smell of damp asphalt. I heard a ghostly scream, a short, sharp sound cut off mid-breath. I was so surprised I had to put my head in my hands and say, "I can't be here." I had to put my head in my hands and say, "I can't be here. I am alive. I am alive." "Is that you, Mr.?" asked the man in the suit. At last he turned his body toward me, and I noticed that his coat was ripped and dirty with a black smudge of ghostly dirt. "Or did you die then, when you left, on that rainy road, leaving your soul behind?" The train started to decelerate. The vibration turned into a low, steady, pulsating rhythm, echoing the rhythmic beat of my own terrified heart. I peeked out to see what was happening around outside. No stations, no sign, only a huge expanse of iridescent fog that devoured the tracks in front of them. The train came to a complete stop. After that, there was complete silence, like a vacuum that emptied my soul of all the last remnants of hope. A chime rang, a note of pure melody and sharpness, stark and out of time in the darkness. Then, over the intercom came a voice. It was not one human voice, it was 1,000 voices. Some whispered, some on high, all in a chilling harmony. The voice called out, "Final stop. Count all the regrets. Have no secrets to conceal." The entire group of passengers got up together. They did not hate me, but with a terrible, hollow pity. They walked towards the doors as they opened, stepping out into the iridescent fog unawares. I sat still on the vinyl, fingers pressing against, my jaw clenched tight. I sobbed. The words "I'm sorry" seemed pathetic and small. "I'm so sorry." Voice over the intercom. "Sorry is not a money here." I checked the palms of my hands. My fingers started to blur at the edges into the jaundiced but light of the carriage. I wasn't a passenger accidentally aboard a ghost train. I was the cargo. A last time, the voice of the intercom rang out, and the sound reverberated across the boundless emptiness beyond. "Thank you for your selection of the Afterlife line." I stood up, all my legs like lead. I was reminded of the empty carriage and of a telephone whose dial had never been used but lay on the floor, an empty shell of a life we now shared. I crossed the threshold, and the cold fog came to meet me, wreaking havoc on the ozone and replacing it with the aroma of rain. The door shut again, and I wasn't scared anymore. The only thing I felt was the suffocation of the silence, and that the train was back at 3:33 a.m., and that someone else had a plan for this time.